You can't
Mm.
go to the doctor and say, my soul is in pain. All right.
Mm.
When we're grieving, it's soul pain, and we're going through, in many ways, an identity crisis in terms of rediscovering who we are in the light of this loss. For me, it was never, why me, God? It was more
Mm.
of just angry, and this will sound so selfish.
Mm.
Uh, you left me. You
Mm.
left me. I was not prepared for that.
Mm.
As a man, we always believe we're going to outlive our wives or spouses, and you left early. To offer uh, 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 an advice to somebody who's grieving, to me, is wasted words.
Mm. Mhm.
What you need to be doing is saying, I love you. I support you.
Mm.
What you need, I'm here for.
This episode of the Good Living Now podcast is sponsored by our friends at Kuvings. Now, I've tried many cold pressed juices over the years, but the Kuvings Auto10 has truly simplified my routine. Now, my personal experience is that it's simple to operate and quick to clean. Now, with the Auto10, I can make everything from nice cream to morning smoothies to sorbets, and I can even make plant-based milk. Now, if you'd like to give it a try, use my affiliate code JUICEGUY at checkout to save 10% on Kuvings. All right, go ahead, grab your fresh produce and get your juice on.
Welcome to the Good Living Now podcast, where we talk to real people about real change leading to real health. I'm your host, Harold Leffall, and today, we're having a conversation about grief and loss. I know this is a subject we don't typically talk about, but it's a path that all of us will experience at some point. And I wanted to have this conversation to kind of shed light on it and to kind of help us understand what grief is and how we can get through it and how we can help others who are going through grief. And so to help navigate this conversation is someone who I recently met, and he has written this wonderful book called Love Beyond Loss. Welcome to the show, Reverend Dr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Brother Harold. Good morning and greetings, and thank you for the kind invitation to share with you this morning.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you so much, for being on this show. It's so interesting how things happen. You and I, we met actually a year ago at the Juicing for Health tour. You and your daughter came, and then we ran into each other just the other day at the gym.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because I have been wanting to have a conversation around loss and grief for some times. And I know all things work together. All things, it was just not a coincidence that we ran into each other. And so I'm so grateful. And I didn't even know at the time that you had written this book. You gave me the book and I was like, oh my God, I need to have you on the show because you yourself have been walking through this journey. You lost your beloved wife. You call her Lady K in the book. You guys have been married 37 years and you lost her just 2 years ago.
Correct. It's coming up on the second year.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
Wow. So how are you? How are you?
Well, I'm in a great space. Okay. And I'm living forward. I'm thankful for a wonderful journey with a beautiful woman. And together we created a loving family over 37 years. And I see that journey as a great gift. And so I celebrate it every day of my life. This book was written out of my grief journey. You know that I am a practicing pastor, over 40 years experience. And one day when she passed rather suddenly. I was out walking and crying and walking. That was my way of initially dealing with the shock and the pain, doing that through the initial week or so. and it came in my spirit while I was walking. It was as if I just heard it. You need to share this experience, and you need to help as many people as possible. And so the
Mm.
book is written from a perspective of a pastor who has helped so many people through loss and through grief, and not just death, through divorce, through loss of a job.
Mhm.
Sickness can be a grieving process when we're going through health challenges. I call them mini deaths. That's what I call them in the book
Mm.
that we go through. And so grieving is a process that we have to learn to go through in a healthy way. I won't be too long,
Right.
but I just want to say this. As you said, when you're open, the conversation, we have either gone through grief or we're going through grief now, or we will
Mhm.
go through it later. You cannot.
Yeah, that's the truth. That is the truth. So, Reverend, tell us. We use the word grief all the time. We hear the word grief, but what's really happening? What is grieving? When we're grieving, what's happening?
Of course, grieving is soul pain. You can
Mm.
go to the doctor and say, my soul is in pain. Right?
Mm.
When we're grieving, it's soul pain, and we're going through, in many ways, an identity crisis in terms of rediscovering who we are in the light of this loss. And one only grieves when you have risked love, when you have risked something of value. And so something of value has shifted for you, and your soul has to reimagine what life is like or possible, given this trauma that one goes through. And so, in many
Mm.
ways, it is a shifting of identity and a calling to a deeper understanding of humanity.
Mm. That is so true. You know, it makes me think about when my mom passed. My mom passed over 20 years ago.
Mhm,
Losing her was so disorienting
mhm.
because so much of who I was tied to my mom.
Yes,
I'm a mama's boy. And so when she was no longer present, I I was lost.
yes.
And what I know now about grieving is that I was grieving for about 10 years,
Okay,
for about 10 years.
right.
And I didn't know it. I just kind of got up and just kind of did what I needed to do, but there was no joy, there was no hope, there was nothing to look forward to.
Mm,
So when people are grieving, how does one know that they're grieving?
mhm. Um, when we're grieving, we don't just grieve the immediate loss, it is tied to previous loss as well. So when my wife transitioned, I was grieving, but then I realized I was grieving the loss of my mother again, because grieving is that deep. And so when I talk to people, and I'm blessed to be able to go around and share with small groups, uh, when you're grieving, it is a sense of something you don't overcome. It becomes integrated into your life.
Mm.
And you mentioned a few minutes ago, it is a sense of lostness. It is a questioning the fundamental questions of life. Who am I in light of this loss?
Mhm.
Why am I here? So many times our world is built around those people who are so important to us, and rightly so. And
Mhm.
then the question of hope looking forward. And when you begin to try to answer those questions and you have a sense of loss in terms of, I don't have answers to these questions, that's a good sign that you're in a grieving process.
Mm. And I know part of the grieving process, you go through all kinds of emotions, and
Yes.
one of them being anger. You
Mhm.
know, I know for me, I was angry at God. I felt like God had taken away, my mom. Um, what are some of the other phases like people go through, like when they're grieving? I know anger is one of them, denial.
Mhm. Yeah, there are several stages of grief. Going through this professionally, personally, I was thinking this cannot happen to me.
Mm,
This happens to other people. I am somebody who cares for other people. And I've seen people do this. And like most people, I'm thinking, hey, I'm trying to be faithful in life. I'm doing all the things I believe to be correct and right. And we're planning for longevity. And so it's a sense of denial in terms of, did this actually happen? You know,
mm,
how did this happen? And then, as you say, you go through the stage of anger. What is going on here? For me, it was never, why me, God? It was more
mm,
of just angry. And this will sound so selfish.
mm,
Uh, you left me.
mm,
You left me. I was not prepared for that.
mm.
As a man, we always believe we're going to outlive our wives or spouses, and you left early.
Yeah.
This was not part of the plan.
Right.
All right. So you get angry. You get angry at the person. Sometimes you get angry at God and other contribution things. You get angry at the medical system, all of those things. And then, you try to bargain. Well, maybe if I had done this and we could have did that, or well, I'll do this if you do that. Particularly when you're going through a sickness or uh, a prolonged period,
Mhm.
you start doing that bargaining, and then you get to that stage where you just don't want to get out of bed. Whoo,
Yeah.
that's the depression.
Mhm.
Just they pull the shades down. You go in. I really don't want to go down. I don't want to see
You don't
nobody.
wanna talk to nobody,
Nobody
yeah.
talk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want nobody's
Oh,
pity.
yeah.
You don't want nobody telling
Right.
you no these canned remarks. And let me say this too. If as you're supporting people who are grieving, don't feel like you have to have all the answers for them. Okay. The greatest gift you can give them is your presence. Presence is the greatest gift. Your presence is enough,
Mm,
and allow them the space and the privilege to grieve in their own process.
mm,
And then lastly, of course, you go through the acceptance stage where you realize this is for real, this has happened, and what do I do now?
mhm,
And that's what the book is for. It's how to move forward, love beyond loss,
mm.
a healing journey from pain to hope and healing.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You brought up how, um, to help support people because I think a lot of times we struggle when we see folks that we love going through the grieving process, and we try to figure out how can we be supportive? How can we be helpful? And, we try to say encouraging things and when you're grieving that you can't a lot of times you just can't hear that, but you made a good point, just being present.
mhm.
And what can that look like when we say being present? Is that going to visit, sending messages, or what does that look like?
Um, there are a couple of things that I think are important and I call it the ministry of
Mhm.
presence. I mean, first of all, if you're going through a grief process, uh, don't allow yourself to be disconnected from your community,
Mm,
your support
mm,
systems that have helped to carry you to that where you're at in life. And of course, that begins officially with family members, community, if you're a person of faith, if you're Muslim, if you're a Christian, whatever faith community you may be a part of, can play a crucial part in the healing.
mm,
So presence begins, and it begins with staying connected. All right. Now, the person who's grieving may not be aware that they're even disconnected. So now, in terms of the caregiver, presence means I'm going to come by the house and check on you. in the Black community, we do that. We're going to bring you
Yeah.
food. We
Mhm.
love to eat. We're going to bring you food. Somebody's going to bring you
Mhm.
plates. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Honey, how you doing? That
Right.
kind of thing. Well, if you bring us some food, this is for
Yeah.
Brother Harold. You bring us something else.
Right, right.
Bring us something good. That's another
Right.
conversation for another day. But presence means being willing to sit with someone, being willing to go for a walk with someone,
Mhm.
being willing to call them on the telephone. You mentioned
Mhm.
texting. Why not pick up? I'm going to text them something every morning for 30 days.
Yeah.
Just a word of encouragement,
Mhm.
presence in terms of your presence is saying you are not alone.
Mhm.
And there's so many ways that you can do that. If you're long distance, the power of Facebook calling, I mean, FaceTime
Yeah.
calling now. Yeah.
Mhm.
That boy, I tell you, you're a grandparent, and your parents, maybe one of the parents transitioned, and you have young kids, and you're in another city. Hey, you know what? A FaceTime call with you and the children on a regular basis,
Mhm.
just to check on dad
Mhm.
or just check on mom.
Mhm.
It draws them, helps them be connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, a lot of times when people are grieving, those around them sometimes want to accelerate the grieving process. They want people to get back
Mhm.
to who they were. I had a friend recently. His mom passed a couple of months ago, and one of his friends said to him, and I don't think that he meant it and had any malice, you know, and his intention, but he said, well, your mom's been gone 2 months, and kind of basically like get on with your life. Can you talk about the grieving process? Because I don't think grieving has any timeline. I think everybody grieves differently, and I think sometimes people can have good intention, but it doesn't.
Mhm.
Because my friend was hurt by that. It's like he was hurt by that.
Absolutely.
So,
And yeah, I affirm with you that grieving does not have a
mhm,
timeline. It is a process. And what's unique about it, we all have to grieve in our own process, and we grieve differently. There is no straight line in terms of at 3 months, you should be here, 6 months, you should be here, a year, you should be here.
mhm,
And the love tangible is kindness. And so the friend should offer kindness. And kindness is the answer in terms of, you know, what do you need? How can I be present with you?
mhm,
Uh, to offer uh, 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 an advice to somebody who's grieving, to me, is wasted words.
mm, mhm,
What you need to be doing is saying, I love you. I support you.
mm.
What you need, I'm here for. And quite honestly, 2 months grieving is like 2 hours. It's not,
Right,
it's not 2 months in real
right.
time. It's
Oh,
time,
yeah.
2 hours.
Mhm,
Let me give you an example. So for almost a year, as a practicing pastor, I'm still expected to eulogize people.
mm,
I'm still expected to help care for families.
mhm,
Okay. So first 3 or 4, I'm in the pulpit crying.
mhm.
Okay. Because, I'm still grieving. And I
Yeah.
share that with the
Mm,
families. And I think they appreciated the authenticity of that. That, hey, here's somebody who's grieving just as we're grieving.
mhm.
So what I would say, particularly, don't put somebody else on what you perceive as an appropriate time. And the other thing,
Yeah.
remember, with humility. Okay. And my wife's passing, I've always been a person of empathy.
Mhm.
And I've always thought I was a pretty uh, uh, person who had a whole lot of empathy. We talked about it at school and all that. But I tell you what, her loss made me more
Mm,
It opened up vistas that I was unaware of.
mm,
It it I've always been a patient person, but boy, it made me a lot more
mm,
patient with people and their
mm,
choices and how they live.
mm,
I always thought I was a non person who didn't judge, but you know
mm,
what? I became far less judgmental.
mm,
I said, if that's how they're choosing to live, let them live that way.
mm.
That's their. So I say
Right.
that when somebody's grieving, don't make the assumption that you know what that experience
Right.
is like. Even though you lost
Mm,
somebody in the past, no, give them the space.
yeah. You know, as people of faith, we know to look to God and to turn to God for everything. But at for some people, they may need additional support. They may need to seek professional counseling or therapy. You know, um, talk a little bit about because how we reconcile our faith with getting therapy or going to a professional counselor versus going to your pastor.
Sure, sure. Um, a pastor is your spiritual leader. They are to come beside you and help you with your spiritual journey. You are responsible for the spiritual journey. They are a resource, a support to walk beside you. A professional counselor, a therapist operates in a different realm. I believe and understand that all of the gifts of healing, therapy, modern medicine, support are gifts that come from God and should be utilized. And one should not expect their pastor to perform all of these tasks for them.
Mm,
So I send people and recommend people to therapy all the
mhm,
time. It doesn't stop me from being their pastor, their spiritual caregiver, for loving them and supporting them. But it also creates a sacred space for them with the therapist who will walk with them in ways I am not capable and will spend the kind of time with them that I am not capable of. And they have professional training for that. And so I recommend people to therapy quite often in many ways. And this is just me personal, pastors are different. I'll do short term support,
mhm,
Harold. I will meet with people, I'll help them, support them, walk them through. But if we're getting into long term care, they need to connect with a therapist
mm,
to take them through a process. So I definitely recommend it and support it. And family members, if you have persons who you know or think need that, don't be afraid to talk with them about it and encourage them to find a therapist that they can relate to, somebody who may have uh, cultural
mm,
similarities. I'll put it that way.
mm. Yeah, yeah. What are three lessons that you've learned on your own healing journey?
Uh, Probably the most important lesson I've learned is gratitude.
Mm,
That on my healing journey, to live with gratitude. So even though I'm wounded and I go through this season of pain, I'm thankful for the journey and the relationship that has been the gift to me in life. Gratitude is healing. It helps with trauma. It's positive mindset. It's mindfulness. It's repeating. And I'm a person who
mhm,
journals, and so I'm can write what I'm thankful for. When you are able to look at what you're thankful for, and so if it's a loss of a person, maybe even the loss of a job, for example, all right, be thankful for the time and the season that was brought into your
Mm.
life. And I believe everything in life is seasons. Unfortunately, everything in life will come to an end, including life itself.
Mhm.
We have relationships that we have in our life for a
Mhm.
season. A lot of us don't know how to close one chapter and open the next chapter
Mhm.
in a way of gratitude. So gratitude is important for the healing
Mhm.
journey, and it helps you to look forward. Embracing forgiveness.
Mm.
What I mean by that is there's a level of guilt that comes with
Yeah.
loss. What could I have done?
Mm.
What did I? Why didn't
Yes.
I make this decision as opposed to this one? And I went through that because I was very close to this process, dealing with medical profession and all these things. And you're like, how did I miss this? And then you have to forgive not only the person that is God, but you have to forgive
Yeah.
yourself, not take on that burden of, it's amazing how we take these things on and say, it's something I did or didn't.
Mhm.
Uh,
Right.
of that process. Um, and then lastly, I would say love,
Mm.
compassion. I mentioned it makes you more human. You hear and you talk about death as a part of life, but when it hits you and you experience it so closely, you wake up every morning and say, "What a gift!
Mm.
What a gift!"
Yeah.
Today I'm going to live. I don't know how many days I have,
Mhm.
but today I'm going to be thankful. I want to live, and I want to live in a way that shares the compassion and the love of what it means to be human. And for me, as a person of faith, that means every encounter, every conversation, every step. I want to be a person who leaves light and not darkness.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. What would you say? Mhm.
I was gonna say, and love is the ultimate healer.
Mhm.
Love is the ultimate healer.
Mhm.
So go ahead.
And one of the things that I learned is that love never dies. Love
Yes.
never dies. It's like now, um, when I think about my mom, first of all, when I'm talking to my son, I hear my mom through her. I'm like, oh my God, my mom would say that. And I just kind of laugh and do a lot of the things that I say and do just reminds me of my mom. And it's comforting, it's comforting now. It's not a sad thing. It brings me joy, just to have those memories and to think about her. Um, what would you say to someone who right now the grief is fresh? They are, you know, it's real dark for them right now. They can't at this point. They don't feel any sense of hope for tomorrow. What would you say to someone that's in that space right now?
For someone who's in that space, I would say live as who you are and not as a person you think you're supposed to be.
Mm.
Because when you're grieving, people are coming to you and you're getting multiple voices, and many times good meaning people who care for you. And they're saying subtly and sometimes not subtly, this is what you should be doing. This is who you are to be in this moment.
Mhm.
And I would say, trust who you are and what you're experiencing, and know that it is a journey and a process. Open your heart. That's the hard part. Open your heart and release what you're going through.
Mm.
That's the pathway to healing.
Yeah.
Don't hold it in. The natural tendency is to shut down, hold it in. But grief is something that will always be with you. See, I don't think you get over
Yeah.
loss. I think it transforms you It's a part of you. You mentioned your mother. Your mother's voice is there. She's a part of you. Of course, naturally, you're going to miss her. You can't call on the telephone, but she's with you. So her loss changed,
Yeah.
which is okay,
Mhm.
which is accept you. And if you're able to accept that, it makes you even a better.
Yeah. 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 That's so important what you said. You don't never really get over grief.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. But like for me, I don't have that pain anymore that,
Mhm.
out. Like when things like Mother's Day or her birthday comes, I'm not sad and depressed anymore like I was for that period. I can celebrate her, and acknowledge her
There you go.
and,
Right.
and do things for other people. I'm blessed to have one of my best friends. Mother has become like my second mom. So, Mother's Day, I'm showering her with stuff. So, yeah. So it does change, but you still always have that, but it won't always be that dark, dark, dark space.
Absolutely. And as you say, you're able to celebrate her. You're able to celebrate the gift of her life and think, wow, look at the gift that I received in this loving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, as you said, the scripture said, love never ends, never fails. The same love she poured into you, you're basically just pouring now into
Yeah.
someone else.
Yeah. And you know what, Reverend? One of the things that I realized when I came out of that grief, my mom would not want me sitting around sad, being depressed. She'd be like, "Boy, get up and do she'll stop that." And I was like, "Okay, mom." So our loved ones who have gone on, they wouldn't want us to remain in that dark space.
Yeah. And it sounds like you hear her voice even today saying,
Get
come on,
up,
get
get
up, get
up,
about
look.
this.
Stop that. Like, you got stuff to do. You got stuff to do.
Yeah.
You are still here. Um, Reverend, tell folks how can they get this incredible book, Love Beyond Loss?
Yes, thank you for that. The simplest way is just to go to bookbaby.com and just type in Love Beyond Loss, and they'll send it right to you. It's the simplest way. It's bookbaby.com, so my publishing company, and they'll send it right to you, Love Beyond Loss. And it will pop up. There's the hardback and there's an electronic version as well. You can download it or you can get the hard copy.
Awesome. And how can people find you on social media?
Find me on social media. Of course, I'm on Facebook. I'm easy to contact. Casey Kimbrough on Facebook, or on Instagram, I'm Kimbrough Casey. Someone else had the other way. So now I'm Kimbrough Casey on Instagram. But Casey Kimbrough, just put my name in. All my contact information is there. And I do have a website. It's called The Casey Kimbrough, because somebody else had Casey Kimbrough. You can reach out there, my contact information, or you can check out my church site, which is Mount Carmel Baptist Church. I'm the pastor there, Mount Carmel Baptist Church, Charlotte, North Carolina. And again, you can reach me there as well. And if I can be of support in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am doing some seminars in different churches and helping some grief groups and those type of things, and would love to be a part of any way I can be of help.
Awesome. Well, Reverend, thank you so much. And thank you for doing this work and reminding us that love and healing is possible, even after loss. Even after loss.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, thank you for the kind invitation, Brother Harold. I really appreciate you. Appreciate your work you're doing. You're challenging me to be better every day. I do follow you. And so thank you for that. I'm on that journey. That's still the journey. So thank you.
Awesome. That's awesome.